Okay, in this video we're going to patch two surfaces side by side, but of course this can be adapted to do any sides that you want. So I just have these two different surfaces right here, and I want them to combine together. Now, there are a number of ways that we can deal with this, and it's really up to you how you want to try and patch the seam. But first we're going to reveal the seam. So we're just going to move one side half to the left, so 50%. This one's to the right, and this one's half to the left. Again, 50%, but negative 50. And then we combine them together, just with an add. And we can see the lovely little seam that is present here. Now I could export this as, say, a mesh and take it off to ZBrush, maybe do some sculpting and try and patch this up any way that I could there, and then maybe do some additional procedural work to it or some stamps or whatever the case may be in order to get that to patch up. Or I can do what I did here, which is using a procedural method straight up. Often cases, a lot of these terrains that you're patching are going to be procedural in nature, meaning that you just change the seed and you suddenly get a different terrain. So whatever your big build is, you've got two different terrains. Those will probably have been built procedurally. Naturally, they're going to have a seam. You just do another build for a patch version. So I've got a third one right here, which is the patch version, which is different and unique from each of these two, but is the same kind of terrain. I'm going to take that and I'm going to use that to cover the seam. Now, in order to do that, I'm taking a gradient, I'm rotating it 180 and then doing a min, and that gives me this little arch here. And with a blur and a levels adjustment, we get a softer transition both going out and in. And I used it like this initially. It took over a big chunk of the area, but it's easy to just go ahead and scale it by half and it still works. And of course, there's our patch. So we've got this, we got a patch, and by scaling it down, it means that I maintain more of the original landscape on either side. Now, if we find that this transition is maybe a little bit too easy, a little bit too basic, I mean, we could go and manually edit the lift on these things, anything that we want to do before we take it out and can bring it back to the originals just to patch up those edges. So I could do, manual masking to do individual information like roads or lifts or other things like that. For the mask itself, I could take the mask and I could do a displace to it and then make it a little bit more wobbly, as long as it doesn't reveal that edge, that center edge there, that the wobbliness doesn't impact our ability to hide the seam, then we're going to be fine. So like if you're fighting to try and hide this transition, it's all really down to how you manipulate this or manipulate the final result. Once you're happy with that seam and you're ready to move on, it's a simple process yet again. We just take that one and we move it over. So here we moved it right, and when we go to move it back, we're now missing information, right? And that information comes from here. You see, and that's what I need to do. So I've got that fixed patched edge, and I need to fill in this missing data, which is right here. That is just simply coming in here. Again, another ramp. I've used a clamp here just to isolate a section. And then I've got my blur on there, again, to soften the transition, and levels, get it to go to its maximum value. And for this side, I just have to rotate it 180 so that it's useful. And that gives me this. So now if we look, there's a little patch. And then the same thing on this side. You move it the other direction because it was first moved to the left. Now it's going to move to the right. And we've got the original blurred version, which patches the right side. And there we go. So coming from this to this. And again, we know how it's going to look when they merge. It's going to look like that. So there's no surprises. You know exactly how it's going to look and whether or not you're happy with it. So that gives you the ability to go ahead and patch any side that you want to. Again, you can take this, you can save it off, and then you can use this by turning these 90 degrees. Instead of moving in the X direction, you move in the Y direction. And you can turn the gradient 90 degrees, both gradients 90 degrees, and suddenly that will, give you the ability to do the other edges. So hopefully this gives you what you need in order to be able to patch up any terrain, to sort of build multiple tiles and then make a seamless sort of terrain, larger seamless terrain. Okay, I'll see you in the next video.